welcome to the third part of our series of working with Office 365 either at home or remotely. Again, it's Jason Ford from Quanta Training here, and in this session I'm going to be taking you through document management. Now, I'm just going to log into my account here for Office 365, and as before, I'm going to launch myself into OneDrive. Now, once I'm in there, what I want to take a look at in this session is a version history of documents and how to recover documents that have been deleted. Now, why a version history is important is because when we're working with these online documents, we don't save in the same way that we do when we're working with documents offline, for example. Let me show you what I mean. Here I am in my OneDrive, and I'm going to create a Word document. So from that menu at the top, I chose New, Word document, and in doing so it launches Word Online, which we've got here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make some changes to this document. And I'm going to rename my document by clicking at the top where it's got document 5, not a particularly useful name for a document, and I'm going to rename said document, just calling it OneDrive Word History. There we go. And you'll see, as I'm making these changes, I get this saved next to the document name. If I tried to go down the traditional route of saving my document by going to File, there's no Save button. No Save button whatsoever. There is a Save As, but I need to be careful with that, because if I do a Save As, I'll actually save an additional copy of this document rather than saving it somewhere. It has automatically saved it, and it's saved it into my OneDrive, which means I can safely close the tab in which I'm editing it, and I should find, if I scroll down in my list here, there's OneDrive Word History, my document that I just edited a moment ago. Let's say I then make some changes. So I'm going to open the document up. Again, launches Word Online in a new tab. Making some changes there. There we go. And again, because it's constantly saving as I'm going, I don't need to actually manually save any of those. That automatic saving is actually really useful. If you're working from home and you have a spotty internet connection, or suddenly because you've got the kids at home and everybody's loading up the internet or the power, suddenly you get a drop in service. Everything you've done to that point will have been automatically saved, so you can't lose hours of work when these documents are stored here. In a future session, we'll actually explore how we can use a local version of these documents, even though the document is ultimately stored online. But we'll get to that a little bit later. For now, I've made those changes to this document, so a few seconds ago I updated that. But what if I wanted to undo those? If I open the document up, so these are the changes I've recently made, unfortunately I can't undo those changes because they were made in a previous session. If I make some changes now, while I'm actually looking at this document, like so, I do have the ability to undo those changes. But as soon as I come out of the document, that undo button is no longer there. And this creates a problem, especially if we're collaborating with other people, as we looked at in our previous session. So what do we do if we've got a document that changes have been made to it, either by us or by somebody else? Well, interestingly, in OneDrive, it actually keeps a history of the different versions of your document as you're going, automatically and for free. It's included with your subscription, included in your license. It just does this for you automatically. No need for you to manually change anything at all, which is great. Now, what I mean by this is if you right click on that document, you should have, down towards the bottom of the options, version history. And in there, you can see that I've got version 1, version 2, version 3, and version 4 of this document. Version 1, the first iteration, version 2, the second, version 3, the third, and the fourth. This is not to be confused with version control, because we have no control over when these are created. They're automatically created as we're working. So, important to understand the distinction between a version history and a version control. Version history is just automatic checkpoints effectively, whereas a version control is where you have minor versions that are then published as major versions. That's when we start getting more into document management, and to be honest, OneDrive isn't really designed for that. It's much more here to allow you to roll back your changes. So, if I wanted to roll back my changes to, let's say, version 2, what I can do is I can click on the 3 dots, or I can right click on where it says 3 minutes ago on the version here, and I have 3 options. I can restore it, I can open that file to take a look at it, or I can delete this version. I'm going to open the file so that I can actually examine it. Now, interestingly, you have to do this in Word, the application on the machine. You can't do this in Word Online. Don't know why, just the way it's designed. So I click Open Word, and this will probably ask me to authenticate. There we go. So I'll sign into that as my account. And having authenticated, it will then download that version of that document in order for me to be able to take a look at it. And here we go. That's how that document was back in version 2. You'll notice I'm unable, no matter how much I try, to actually make changes to this. You can't make this change because the selection is locked. It's all locked because it's a record of how this document was at this point in time. You'll also notice along the top of the bar here, I've got a couple of options. I can compare this document, or I can restore it. If I click compare, if I just give that a moment, what it does is it uses the review changes functionality built into Word in order to show me the changes that have been made. It's so that I can see the differences between the current document, the differences, and that version there. If I would like to accept those changes, I can click Restore. And what it will do, this is now the live version. And so, if I close Microsoft Word down, I'll need to update the web page because it only shows you what was true when you last interacted with it. So if I go into OneDrive Word History and take a look at the version history, can you see I now have version 5? So I was on version 4, I opened version 2 and restored it, and that gave me version 5. Version 5 is actually a copy of version 2. The reason that it does this is so that if I wanted to undo my restoration, I can restore version 4, which will take me back to how I was before I restored version 2, and that will then create a version 6. Don't get too caught up in the version numbers, and also don't worry too much about keeping the number of versions that you have down. By default, it will keep 500 versions of any of your documents, which is loads. If you were working on a document constantly, it saves roughly every minute or so. So you'd need to be working for 500 minutes continuously to actually reach that limit. So you're unlikely to get anywhere near it. And it's good to be able to roll it back or look at how a document was at different points in time. However, what I've now got, if I open up OneDrive Word History, I should see, there we go, the document, which is now editable, is in the same state it was when it was at version 2. So whether I've made the changes or whether somebody else has made the changes, actually I have the ability to roll it back to any point in time, which is excellent flexibility to have. And again, I know I keep harping on about this, but this is functionality you simply don't get if you are storing your documents locally on your machine. You don't get this built-in version history, so it really is worthwhile having it there. Okay, the other part of document management I'd like to explore is deletion. So I've got my document here, I'm going to delete it. Now you may recall all the way back in the previous session I explained the only people that can actually delete files is you as the owner of your OneDrive. Somebody you've shared with, even if they've got edit permission, won't be able to delete. They can modify the content, they can't delete the object itself. So I'm going to delete my Word document here, and it's going to ask me whether I want to send the items to somewhere called the site recycle bin. It calls it a site recycle bin because OneDrive is effectively your own private website, and so it's sending it to that website's recycle bin. I'm going to delete it. You can only delete files as long as they're when they're not open. Same thing for renaming. If you've got it open or someone else has it open, you won't be able to make that change. And where they go to, on the left-hand side here, is into your recycle bin. And there we go. There is my document, and I can see not only who it was created by, but also who it was deleted by. Now, the reason that it tells you who deleted it is because if you've shared a folder with someone, they can actually delete the contents of the folder, which might be some documents. So that's why it's important. The only person that can access the recycle bin, though, is the owner of the OneDrive, which is you. So even if somebody does delete the contents of a folder and thus delete a document, it'll go into your recycle bin and you have the ability to recover it. You and you alone. Unless you need administrative help from some kind of IT function. They can always get in. You can't really keep your admins out of any of your infrastructure. Okie dokie. So, what can we do with the document from here? Well, we can right click on it, and we can either delete it, restore it, or take a look at its details. If we restore it, it puts it back no harm done, complete with its version history and sharing status. If we delete it, well, let's take a look at what happens. So I'm going to delete this document, and you'll see it's going to remove it from the end user's recycle bin, okay, which is my recycle bin as the end user of my OneDrive. However, all is not lost. I actually do still have the ability to get this document back. If you don't manually delete things from your recycle bin, you'll actually find that you've got 30 days. By default, your organization may have tweaked that, but by default 30 days to recover it from here before it is then moved on to the next place it goes to, which is, using this hyperlink down at the bottom, the second stage recycle bin. Okay, and in there we can see, here's my OneDrive Word history document. The second stage recycle bin is a last chance saloon, okay? Once it's deleted from here, it is gone. No one in your organization is going to be able to help you get it back. You can go cap in hand to Microsoft, and they may have it somewhere on a backup to be able to recover it, but there's no guarantee of that. So make sure that you're only deleting things that you actually need to delete. Bear in mind that with any OneDrive license, you have up to 1 terabyte of storage. A terabyte is a humongous amount of space, so there's less of a need to really keep on top of how many documents and how much data you've actually got within your OneDrive than with traditional storage solutions. The last thing I'm going to show you in this session is how to restore, which is just right-clicking on the document, choosing to restore it, puts it back into my files, no harm done. So I should find, if I scroll down through, there we go, the document is back, and not only that, it retained a full version history as well. So you do have that safety net built into OneDrive in order to ensure that should things be deleted, you can easily restore them, recover them back as they were before. Brilliant. That's document management taken care of. In our next session, we will take a look at synchronizing OneDrive to a local folder.